Hey everybody, we're starting just a little bit early, but that's okay. It's definitely not because I hit the button a little bit early accidentally, because that would be unprofessional, and this is a very professional stream. And as you can see, one, I'm in my human suit today. Hello, this is my human suit waving at you, and I'm wearing this wonderful pink tutu. That is because you guys were exceptionally generous on the last Kent with Bent, so I am wearing this beautiful tutu here. I'm saving Bent from having to do it by wearing both a human suit and a tutu. It is incredibly stuffy. I'm gonna have to like just rip off this mask and be able to breathe again afterwards. So I want to address a couple things about timing because we are at an unusual time tonight. And but first, I want to go through a few membership chats and a super chat from David Hercules. All right. So first, Fear doesn't have an electroshock kink monger. Says, who's been a member for 12 months, is at the tetrapod level, says, F it, insert AIG joke here, drink and a Godzilla. And so we will take a drink for that. Thank you very much, Fearmonger. I'm drinking a rum and cola. Benthoven, no relation, who's been a member for 40 months at the tetrapod level, and who has that wonderful silver Dapper Dino logo right there. Only one more to go. Says, Godzilla, just the Godzilla emoji, so I'll take a drink for that too.
Yay.
Let's see. David Hercules for $10 says, magnificent human suit and a very dapper tutu. So how much for a knife fight in a prom dress? That might be something you have to talk to Aaron for. One, I don't have a prom dress, so you would have to buy me the prom dress, and I can't think of anyone I want to get into a knife fight with. So I guess you'd have to buy me one of those too. And then on top of that, I don't know, like few grand maybe. Olivia Williams for 5 Beaverbuck says, make me wonder if Dapper is a Transformers with mass shifting Mothra. I'll take a drink for the Mothra. And here's the thing, though. You have no way of knowing how big this human suit is, right? Like, this could be like a whole meter across right here. You don't know. There's no size reference. That's why I have a green screen up, so that you don't get a size reference. I look like I'm the same height as Bent here, but I'm actually much, much taller. Like, I can't even fully stand up in that room he's in. Although that room has low ceilings anyway.
Allegedly.
It does. I've measured it. And I even Googled the average ceiling height just to prove you wrong about that.
It's not as low as you think it is.
Well, okay, but you're not a 2-meter tall dinosaur.
No, I am not.
So there you go. Oh, look at that. There's a dog. Oh, what a cutie.
Aww.
All right, so we are here for the continuation of Kent with Bent. For those of you who might be new, this is a show where we take a look at mostly older Kenthoven videos, and basically we debunk it live while, at least I increasingly get buzzed because, you know, there's rum in here. And so we have some drink triggers, but first I want to read the first super chat on the channel from Eris Rose for $1.99 says, I can finally do this with a Mothra, and it didn't quite work because YouTube is kind of a jerk like that, but we'll take a drink for it anyway. Basically, if you're not on PC, there's a really high chance that YouTube is just not going to use the actual emoji, even though you should be able to. It's very annoying, and I hate it. But that is...
Get better.
I know, right? That is what it is. Skeletor over 9,000 says, oh my god, Dapper's wearing his fursuit. Yeah, basically. I mean, you know, I'm actually a dinosaur, and I'm wearing a suit of a hairy, sweaty, fat monkey man. So, you know. So, anyway. During our, as you can tell, during our takedown of Kenthoven, we tend to do some drinks. Now, you guys have already seen one of the big drink triggers, which is if anyone uses one of the kaiju emojis, of which we have 3. We've got Godzilla, Mothra, and King Ghidorah. You use one of those, we'll take a drink. If it's in a super chat or a membership chat, it can't just be in regular chat. Also, anyone who super chats or membership milestone chats, anything to the effect of AIG or a bag of dicks, will take a drink. Also, if you gift memberships, we will take a drink for that. So for every gifted membership, we will take 1 drink. It is by far the fastest way to get us to drink. If you go above like 30 or so, then we're going to just drain what we have, add the appropriate number, and then go get another drink after a quick break. So do be warned that if you decide to send 200, I'm not going to take 200 separate drinks because that'll just be here the whole night. Spud Byro for $20 says AIG is a big old sack of love tools and Godzilla goes roar. First time to catch a live stream, but have been enjoying content for a few weeks. Well, thank you very much. We'll take a drink for that. For that Godzilla and AIG joke. Very nice. And yeah, now you guys can see me try to like get the straw in my mouth while I'm not looking, and it's really awkward. Yeah. I do that off camera in my dinosaur suit all the time, except that the dinosaur suit doesn't even really have real lips, so it's such a pain. You guys have no idea what I put up with being a dinosaur, just to entertain you guys. But we also have, most of our drink triggers are from Kent. But Tiktaalik sends 100 Argentinian pesos to say, is the hand we're seeing like a toy claw you're holding, or is it the first partial appearance of your mammalian butler? So the butler controls this, but he's very, very good at it. So yeah, it's very impressive. This is a whole like a multi-person operation. It's sort of like a cross between a human suit and a puppet. It's very complicated. Yeah. There's all sorts of gears and joints in here, and you would be able to hear them, but I have really good noise canceling on, so yeah, that's what's going on there. Okay, but we'll talk about the drink triggers from Kent. Which way is Kent is this way. Okay, I don't have this X mirrored, so like I don't know which way to point. Yeah. So if Kent says something that's just too stupid and we have to cool our brains down, we'll take a drink. If Kent says something that's right and he's not just quoting someone else, we'll take a drink. If Kent tells a joke that doesn't land or a story that didn't happen, we'll take a drink. So for instance, if one day he makes up a story about the time that his daughter stumped a museum docent with inane ideas about geology that make no sense whatsoever, and then that museum docent suddenly converted to young earth Christianity, yeah, we take a drink for that, because I'm pretty sure that's a thing that didn't happen. We will also take a drink if Kent Hopend basically mentions the people that normally would trigger Godwin's Law. Now, to be fair, technically, he's not having an argument online with someone and comparing them to those people, so he hasn't actually violated Godwin's Law or been an example of it when he does that usually, but still, you guys know what I'm talking about. We will also take a drink if Kent Hovind mixes up the specimen Lucy with a wider taxon to which she belongs, such as hominins generally, or Australopithecus afarensis generally, or just Australopithecus generally. And we call that ad hominid. Now, it's not just using Lucy as a nickname for Australopithecus afarensis or some other thing, right? It actually has to be him saying, oh, well, we don't know anything about Australopithecus afarensis feet because Lucy didn't have foot bones. That's an ad hominid. It can only happen once per stream, though. We also have Trojan source. If Kent Hovind cites a source, and it rather than failing, it not only does it fail to support his idea, but if it actively contradicts his ideas, then we take a drink for that. That is Trojan source. Also, if Bent or I can successfully make a prediction about what is coming up next, and we're right, we'll take a drink, but it does have to be somewhere where it's, a little bit iffy as to what exactly is going to be happening next. And I believe, finally, if you hear Mothra or Godzilla come through somewhat randomly, we take a drink for that. Bent, have I missed anything?
I think you got them all.
All right. Well, that was without... you can see I wasn't looking at any notes. Although you can't see my desk, so maybe there's notes right there. But anyway, no notes. All right. So, Bent, unless you have any... Oh, wait. I wanted to address the weird time change. Okay, so for those of you who don't know, I live in Arizona, where we do not change the clocks for daylight saving time or standard time. We are always in Mountain Standard Time. But also, this show is starting early for even me. Because after the show, directly after, I want all of you to go check out the show linked in the pinned comments. Right? There's a pinned comment up there. Right? It is a link to a show on the channel Reason to Doubt with Vishanti, where she and Jordan are going to be talking about atheism in the... anti-Semitism in the atheist community, why it seems to be a problem that keeps cropping up, and what can be done to avoid instances, or to avoid yourself being anti-Semitic if you're atheist, or even if you're not, is probably going to have some good advice on not being anti-Semitic. So, because there are things that people do that sometimes they don't realize come across, at least to Jewish people, as anti-Semitic. Maybe you might want to pay attention to what those are. I don't know. Turkey Slot for $4.99 says Godzilla puts AIG in their bottom boat and kicks it to Mars. That's the bag of dicks emote. All right, we'll take a drink for that. I would like to see Godzilla put AIG in a sack and kick them to Mars. That would be pretty fun. Okay. But now I think it is time for more Kent Hovind. Now, when we last left off, Kent was talking about a real problem in paleontology where it is not always easy to tell whether or not two very similar fossils are the same species and just different morphs, whether that be sexual dimorphism or just, inherent variation, right? Like, humans aren't all the same size. They don't have exactly the same limb proportions and whatnot. So, like, at what point can you draw a species line? And he is focusing in on sexual dimorphism. So, when he started out this, he was actually onto a real problem in paleontology. So we're going to see where he goes with it. And here we go. Here's Kent.
For instance, if you look at sea lions, the male is huge and the female is always real tiny.
I wouldn't call female sea lions tiny, but they're much smaller than the males. So, I mean, there is that. Well, I don't know much, but they are smaller.
So, and if you look at black widow spiders,
he should have gone with walruses, because there's an even bigger size difference, and the walrus males had the giant tusks,
Mm-hmm.
That would have been a better example. But he's not wrong, right? So, sure, we'll take a drink. He is right about this being a highly sexually dimorphic species. And we're going to take a few more drinks, because I'm pretty sure he's going to get this right a few more times. But here we go.
The female's huge and the male's real tiny.
Mm-hmm. Black widow spiders,
Put those two together. If all you found,
take a drink,
were fossils of them, you probably would have them as a different species.
Now, that's an interesting question, right? Because we know what the sexual dimorphism pattern is in spiders generally. So we probably have an idea. And throughout most of the life of a male spider, because most of them only live to mate once, they actually have visible appendages on their pedipalps, which are where they deposit their sperm, and then they can use that to actually take that sperm packet and insert it into the gonopore of the female. If you don't know what a gonopore is, look it up, I guess. Dr. Zoidberg's species has gonopores, so there you go. Anyway, so you could probably tell that like all of the small morpho spiders that you're finding are all male, or at least most of them are male if you can find them in like well enough preserved situations like in amber or like really fine grained sediment. And then you would find this larger species that probably has some similar characteristics, because morphologically there are similarities between male and female black widow spiders. But you would notice that all of the bigger morph all lack any kind of spermatophore or anything like that. So you might not be able to say for certain, but you could probably get a good inkling. But it is, like I said, it is a real problem in paleontology to distinguish between different species and sexual dimorphism versus just variation in the phenotype of a species. So, DM answers in Gojira Wing says for $2, sorry I'm late, you can start now. Okay, we'll start. Here we go. We got this.
So that's why today there are 700 or 800 different kinds or varieties of dinosaurs in the dinosaur books for kids, and they got all these big names to learn.
Okay, that's not actually true, right? So, generally speaking, we don't see a lot of like dual morphs in paleontology where we can see two animals that are very similar except for things like size or the kinds of things that we typically associate with sexual dimorphism. Like, there aren't a whole lot of like tiny horned, smaller triceratops looking creatures that we could identify as female triceratops, but instead are actually just identified as different species of triceratops. We actually even have two morphs of Tyrannosaurus rex, which are presumed to represent male and female, where the larger, more robust morph is probably female, because we've found medullary bone in only that morph of T-Rex, and we haven't found medullary bone in the more gracile version. And what medullary bone is, it's a kind of bone that both birds and some non-bird dinosaurs deposit in the cavity of their long bones, the same area where they normally would have barrow. And that extra calcium is used to produce eggshells. So this is only something that happens when these animals are getting ready to lay eggs. And if you find medullary bone, you can be pretty darn well assured that the animal you found it in is female, because laying eggs is kind of like part of the definition of being female in dinosaurs. So like, so we actually do recognize this. And so it's possible, right, that a few dinosaur species, of very closely related species, could be collapsed down because of sexual dimorphism. But one of the things you got to remember is that's going to be within a genus, and the vast majority of dinosaur genera are monospecific, which means they only have one species in them. So That's not very likely to happen. Like Giraffatitan and like Apatosaurus aren't likely to be, oh wow, one was just male and one was female. Like, no, they're entirely different genera. That's probably not what's happening here. So, yeah. And of course, like, this is all just guesswork from Kent. He's like, well, this is a problem in some species. Maybe we could just vastly reduce the number of dinosaur species. Do you have evidence that we can, Kent? Can you name an actual species pair that you think might represent male and female of the same species? And of course he can.
There's probably only about 30 different kinds of dinosaurs.
Citation needed, Kent. Let's take a
Goes
drink.
from 800 down to 30.
Yeah, I don't... Like, even if we accept that every
Doesn't
single
work.
species of dinosaur has another morph that's just the female or the male version of it, that might be able to get us down from his proposed 300 to 150. I don't know what we're going to do after that.
But there's all these variations. Who would ever put well, some animals, as they grow, they go through totally different stages. Caterpillar, butterfly. Others, like a baby grasshopper, looks like a big grasshopper.
Yeah,
Just smaller.
that's true.
Whereas
Take a
baby
drink.
Butterfly looks like a worm. Same thing with a fly. It's a maggot.
Yep.
Then it becomes a fly. Okay. Some go through several of these stages. Yeah, tadpole. Then it's got 2 legs. Then it's got 4 legs and a tail. And then it's got 4 legs and no tail.
Do you think he recognizes that, you know, paleontologists know how to tell the difference between juvenile and adult forms of various different groups, like list amphibians or insects or fish? Like,
No.
people can
He
tell.
doesn't think that anyone has ever thought of those things.
I see. Yeah, and here's another thing. We're usually pretty hesitant to assign obviously juveniles like radically new taxa. Now, it does happen from time to time, right? Like Nanotyrannus was given its own genus when it was actually just a juvenile Tyrannosaurus rex. The same thing happened with Dracorex and Stygimoloch, right? Those were ontogenetic stages of the development of Pachycephalosaurus. So, like, it does happen, but this is not something that's going to be a rampant problem. And also, especially with dinosaurs, in many cases, we actually have the juvenile forms associated with the adult forms because many dinosaurs had extensive parental care, just like modern dinosaurs, aka birds. And yeah, Vagary, local interdimensional cephalopod, points out he doesn't know what defines a dinosaur. Okay, yeah, that's a fair point. I can't expect too much from Kent, who doesn't know what a dinosaur is, despite calling himself Dr. Dino for decades. Savage antipodal-bearing Shore's Cobra for $2 says, can he name a single archosaur that metamorphoses? Yeah, that's a great question. What does an archosaurian larva look like, Kent? Does it look like a worm? Because I've never heard of any such thing.
Me neither.
Some do.
I always wonder, why don't they use caterpillar to butterfly?
Oh, I have almost all the time in debates, they'll say a caterpillar to a butterfly is evolution. I say no.
I don't believe that's a story that didn't happen.
What?
That has never happened in a debate that I've seen with Kent Hovind ever, and I've seen basically all of them. I don't think
He's lying.
it has been years since I came across a Kent Hovind debate that I hadn't already seen. Yeah, no, he's almost certainly lying. And then DM answers in Gojira Wing says Dinomorphosis Skryonk, which is of course the Godzilla call, but it's not the Godzilla emoji, so we don't take a drink for it. Yeah.
This is directed by a very complex code. The caterpillar isn't doing this on his own. I mean,
it's not like someone outside the caterpillar is telling him what to do. It is doing it. It's on.
Is doing it on its own.
Yeah. I mean, granted, it's not a conscious choice, right? Like, the caterpillar isn't deciding, today I shall pupate. But it is doing it on its own.
spins a cocoon, turns to jelly inside.
Okay, that's kind of correct and kind of not. Now, it does digest a large portion of its body mass in order to fuel the cell division that allows it to grow from that point into an adult. So, like, kind of. Also, Fade to Gray T-Rex is like a butterfly. Gifted 1 Dapper Dinosaur membership, and it went to Interrobang. So we will take a drink for that. Thank you very much. Also, I'm just going to say people are in danger of Bilbo.
And reforms with wings that can fly away. Explain that to me. Yeah, how did that evolve?
Well, Kent, there's this thing called instars, right? And one of the things you might notice about most insects that have instars, like grasshoppers, like he already pointed out, is that they actually do have a significant difference between their juvenile and their adult stage, which is the wings themselves. All insects only gain wings on their final molt, which includes insects like grasshoppers. And so we already have set up a significant difference between that final molt and the previous molts. And all you really need to do is have different genetic signals that activate or deactivate depending on molt, which we already know is a thing that insects could do before they started having full metamorphosis. And we have insects that metamorphose to different levels, right? Like there are some insect larvae that look a lot like adult insects, right? They have 6 well-developed legs, well-developed mandibles. They even have an exoskeleton over most of their body, unlike caterpillars. So that's a relatively minor amount of metamorphosis. And from there, it just, more and more differences in genetic signaling. That's it. And also, most insects aren't as extreme as going from a caterpillar to a butterfly. So there's that too. But yeah. Or we could just go with the God of the Gaps, where like, oh, I don't know how metamorphosis could evolve, therefore it couldn't, and it must have been God. Which, I mean, I guess you can do that. But you know what tends to happen with the God of the Gaps? It tends to shrink every time a gap is filled. It's kind of weird.
For millions of years, none of them survived. They got to the cocoon stage and died. Turned to jelly and something ate them,
Oh my goodness. Take a drink. Kent, the ancestor of butterflies butterflies didn't evolve from caterpillars. That's not how metamorphosis works, right?
It's not how evolution works.
That's like saying, how did humans survive? What, did they get to the baby stage and then that's as far as they went, so they all died because they were just babies? No, there was never a point in human evolution when human ontological development stopped at being a baby. Organisms don't evolve from their juvenile states to their adult states. That's not how it works. Fitz of Carl Baw's English Teacher's Rate for $2 says, just want to see your fursuit say my name, AIG. Oh, we'll take a drink for the AIG bit. And then, Dr. Tapioca Weasel has gifted 10 Dapper Dinosaur memberships. They went to Chaz Sirius, Brian Stevens, C. Nedra, Saab B, or is it SAHB? I'm not sure. Stephen Leahy, Tom Boogan, and Zar Nirankar. So let's take 10 drinks. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, give me a second. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. All right. Goodness, that was a lot. I'm getting a little bit of the brain freeze because it's actually fairly cold now.
Uh-oh.
That's okay. Here we go.
Let them survive. Right, can't reproduce till they're butterflies.
Yeah, but again, they didn't evolve from adult caterpillars because that's not a thing, right? The adult form of insects is the thing that comes first, because one of the things we can see is that the nymph-like development, where you don't have a distinct larval and pupal stage, is more taxonomically widespread than the full metamorphosis is, which means that that's the primitive condition for insects. So they evolved from animals that don't have much metamorphosis as they go through ontology, and then they modified not their adult stages, but the juvenile stages. And one of the pressures for this is actually something called niche partitioning, which normally happens between species, but it can be advantageous if it happens within a species as your age changes. So basically, caterpillars mostly eat leaves, right? But, butterflies, what do they normally eat?
I don't know what they eat.
Nectar. That's why they have those long, that's why they have those long curl-up tube mouths that they unfurl and they stick it into the flower, and they, flap at the flower and they suck up the nectar. Same thing with moths. moth caterpillars eat leaves. Adult moths eat nectar. That's 2 different niches, which means that juvenile, moths and butterflies, lepidopterans, they don't have to compete with the adult lepidopterans for food. That sounds great, right? Like, if you couldn't care for your kids because of the various aspects of your biology, at least it would be nice if you didn't have to directly compete with them for food, right? That would increase the survivability of both the adults and the juveniles. And it also allows them to do things like monarch butterflies. They're mildly toxic to most animals because the food they eat as a caterpillar is toxic, but they couldn't eat that food because it's in the leaves of the plants that they eat. It's mostly milkweed. And adult butterflies can't eat milkweed leaves. They can only eat nectar. But they carry those toxins over from being a caterpillar into being an adult butterfly. That's really neat, and it's a very strong selective advantage if you can separate out the niches of a juvenile and an adult, which is the selection pressure for this. It's also why a lot of insect larvae are aquatic, right? Like dragonflies and their nymphs or naiads, sorry, because they're underwater, so they're naiads, which is just Greek for aquatic nymph, but whatever. Dragonfly naiads and adult dragonflies are both predators, and they both eat things like insects and other small invertebrates in the water, or around the water. But, as adults, those insects are flying around, hawking insects out of the air, whereas as juveniles, they're in the water, eating things that are underwater, which is less of a niche partition, but it's still a niche partition. Alex Markle says, so wait, what eats clothes? Certain moth caterpillars actually do eat clothes. That's why you get mothballs. It's primarily to keep the moths away from the clothes so that they don't lay eggs on the clothes, which will then hatch into caterpillars that happen to eat clothes. And that's primarily because the textiles are actually plant-based. So they've just found that it's easier for them to attack clothing than it is to attack leaves. Clothing is much less likely to have, like predators. I don't know. I don't have a whole lot of predators in my closet. Do you, Bent?
Mm-mm.
No? You don't get like a lot of birds that just fly into your closet to check for moths
No.
or caterpillars? Okay.
That's never happened to me, no.
Okay. So, if you think about it, if you were a moth, that sounds like a really good place to lay your eggs. Predator-free zone.
Yeah.
So, yeah. All right. Here we go. A little bit more content.
I mean, when you study stuff like this, you say, God, you got to be so smart. And you put so many things down here just to make it look obvious that it couldn't evolve, and yet people still believe it anyway.
I mean, except that it's not in any way obvious that it couldn't evolve, but... Okay, Kent.
Kent doesn't know what the word obvious means.
No, he really doesn't. What he means is, I don't understand how it could have happened, therefore it's obvious to everyone that it couldn't have.
That it didn't happen.
Right. Savage Antipodal Bearing Shores Cobra says, for $5, PSA, humans do not benefit from consuming plant toxins like monarch butterflies can't. That's true, they do not. I highly recommend... Look, I'm not a doctor, this isn't health advice, right? Don't eat poison in the hope that it will make you poisonous to predators. If you live in an area where predators that eat humans are common, there are better solutions, like going out in big groups and carrying force multipliers. Yeah. I had an uncle who lived in, for a little while, in the an area in Alaska where you were required to carry a force multiplier and be in a group of at least 2 people in order to ever go outside. You were not allowed to be outside without a force multiplier and another person, because the polar bears would hunt people.
Ooh.
Yeah. So, they actually made a horror movie out of that town. So, yeah.
Golly.
Tiri, can you type that in 11 seconds? Rana, member for 5 months, at the tetrapod level, says, imagine kids not compete for my sweets. Yeah, that would be nice, wouldn't it? All right, well, so, and there's a Mothra. We'll take a drink for the Mothra. DM Answers and Gojira Wing says, aren't capsaicin and caffeine plant toxins? Capsaicin, not quite, right? Because it's not actually toxic to any animals in the normal amounts that you would get from plants that have it. But caffeine, yes. Caffeine is a insecticide. Capsaicin is actually just there to discourage mammals from eating the fruit. and to encourage birds eating the fruit, because birds are unaffected by capsaicin. They actually have no reaction to it on their mucous membranes. And so those plants, like chili peppers and things like that, until humans started cultivating them, because, you know, humans are sometimes sadists a little bit, those plants were specialized for bird dispersal. So birds would eat the chilies, and they would poop out the seeds, hopefully far away, and then that would grow into new chili plants. So, but also, if you eat large amounts of caffeine and spicy stuff, that's not going to make you toxic to predators. So, still not going to help much.
Is it true that caterpillars have to be alive 17 years before?
There's all sorts of varieties. Some
I have no idea what Eric just said. Oh
Yes,
my
the
goodness!
Caterpillars had to be alive for 17 years.
I mean, some cicada larvae do that. You know, there's like 19-year cicadas and whatnot, but no, that's not a thing for caterpillars. I've never heard of a caterpillar that stays a larva for 17 years. I don't think that's
Seems
a
like
thing.
a long time.
are only in the caterpillar stage for a few months, turn to a butterfly or a moth or whatever. Some are 17 years. That is an
There are like more than a decade long larval stages for some insects. I'm not aware of any of them being like moths or butterflies or anything like that. So, my unfinished channel says for $5, can evolution make a caterpillar as big as Texas? Checkmate atheists. I don't believe it can. No. Yes, as it turns out, evolution is in fact limited by the laws of physics. Yeah. Evolution is also not going to let you fly like Superman or shoot lasers out of your eyes or turn back time by flying west.
Yeah, but a lot of west.
Yeah, very, very west. So west you wouldn't even believe it. Yeah. No, that is not how that works.
entire study in itself that you could spend a lifetime on, and it's very interesting stuff.
Yeah, those people are called entomologists, Kent. You could consult with them. They would tell you how ridiculous you're being. Yeah, there are people who spend their whole lifetime studying things like that. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Dog, wolf, and coyote probably had a common ancestor, but a 3-year-old can tell you it's the same kind of animal.
First, you're always changing the age, Kent, but also, I just remember that time when you gave that test to some kids at Dinosaur Adventureland with different species of squirrels, and they said no, they weren't the same kind. And you were like, what do you mean? They're all a squirrel. And the kid was like, they look different. And you're like, come on, it's all just a squirrel. So you're wrong on your own terms, Kent. When you actually ask kids, they don't agree with you. So, yeah. Zerolon says, the longest time I can find for a caterpillar is 5 weeks. Really? That short? Huh. I did not know that. I mean, if you had asked me how long what's the longest time that a caterpillar stays a caterpillar, I probably would have guessed more like 10 or 12 weeks. I'm actually kind of surprised that it's so small. Today I learned. Pretty neat. For $2, Kent No Relation Halstead says, can I time travel if I reach the West Pole? Yes. If you can find the West Pole, that will allow you to time travel. That is, in fact, how that works. And also, I have to say, we have 90 viewers, but only 40 likes, which means that, unfortunately, once again, I like less than half of you, half as well as you deserve. So if you don't want to get Bilbo'd again, I suggest you hit that like button.
When I do at churches now, I'll say, okay, I got some animals up here on the screen. How many kids are 5 and under? Raise your hand.
No, Ken, I've seen you do this. You put in 3 canines and a frickin' banana. Of course they're going to choose the banana. Put in something that's a little tricky, Kent. Why don't you put in, like, I don't know, a kinkajou. Put in a kinkajou and a raccoon and a wolf and a coyote. See what happens. How many kinds is that going to be, Kent? I don't know. I'm pretty sure different kids would give different answers. Also, kinkajous are great.
Yeah, they
Yeah. Ben, what was the story about how you found out what a kinkajou was? Wasn't it like just opening a dictionary to a random page?
It was literally opening a dictionary to a random word.
Yeah.
And it landed on kinkajou. And then I was going to name my band the Kinkajou.
Would you get a kinkajou as a mascot?
I considered it, but then I looked into it and I thought it's probably a bad idea.
A kinkajou is kind of like if a raccoon were just a monkey. Like, what if you gave a raccoon a prehensile tail and it was just a monkey, but it's still like a raccoon, and like that's a kinkajou. They're in the same family as raccoons, Procyonidae, and they're adorable. They've got little hands and the prehensile tails, and they mostly eat fruit, and they make terrible pets, by the way, because most wild animals make terrible pets. So don't keep a kinkajou unless you have like a zoo license and you really know what you're getting into. And also, don't traffic kinkajous, because that's not okay. Trafficking wildlife is it's bad.
By then, the parents got to wake them up. Hey, wake up, kid. Raise your hand. Okay. Okay, now, boys and girls, now let's see who can be the first one to tell me the answer to this one. Here we have a dog, a wolf, a coyote, and a banana.
What did I just say? A dog, a wolf, a coyote, and a banana. Oh my goodness, we're taking a drink for that prediction. I didn't even know it was a prediction. Come on, Kent. Oh my goodness. Do you think maybe I've seen too much Kenthoven content?
Maybe. Maybe.
Oh well. Goodness. I'm gonna cough.
Which one is not like the others?
Yeah, Kent, that's a different question than are they in the same kind, right? Are they in the same kind is the question. Do they all share common ancestry? But here's the thing. If you put a wolf, a coyote, a jackal, say, and a fox in that picture, right? The fox is the odd one out. Did they share a common ancestor? You don't know. You probably think like maybe. Yeah, maybe. So, yeah, and Fitz of Kralbaz English Teacher's Race says, is that also a drink for stupid? No, because I think it's actually dishonest. I think he knows what he's doing when he does that, right? Because, first I'll read the Harvey M super chat. Harvey M for $5 says, speaking of bananas, AIG is a bag of those sort of bananas that inspire Ray Comfort every time they squirt in his face. Those squirting bananas, you know. I think TJ, the Amazing Atheist, knows all about that. Yeah. If you haven't seen that clip, don't go looking for it. Yeah, don't. You shouldn't. Anyway, where was it? Yeah, no, I think this is Kent being intentionally dishonest, right? Because if you look back to the debate that he had with Aaron Ra, where he picked elephants as pine trees as the two different kinds, and Aaron tried for basically the entire debate to get him to choose animals which are closely related according to evolutionary biology, but that he thinks don't share common ancestry. He would refuse to do it, and he would go to the two most different things he could think of. Now, I can think of things that are more different from an elephant than a pine tree, but I don't think Kent knows why they would be more different, right? Like, mushrooms are more like elephants than pine trees, and, say, bacteria are less like either than they are, or less like elephants than pine trees are, right? So, but yeah, he went to the two things that are as different as he could possibly think of, because those are the things that are the biggest. It would take the most amount of evidence to demonstrate common ancestry for. He knows what he's doing. He knows that he has to make the biggest difference possible to make it seem obvious. But that if he actually went in the way that we need him to for this idea to be taken seriously, where he needs to have a falsifiable criterion that can separate very similar organisms, that he has nothing. So I don't think it's stupid. I think it's dishonest. Pibblepunk, the Ape Istivist, says for $5, nice human suit dapper. Can't believe there's a whole Ceratosaurus in there. Well, like I said, it's actually much bigger than you think. Like, this is like a whole meter, right? Like in centimeters, it's a tiny little thing, like right here, you know? So, yeah. That's how I help fit it in. And also, like I said, these are mechanical, you know, it's a whole big operation. But thank you. I do appreciate that you like the human suit. I don't know. I've seen better human suits, but this one's okay. You know,
Gets the job done.
yeah. At least I don't have to pull my face back like Edgar from Men in Black just to make it look okay.
Yeah.
So.
And I get some 5-year-old to raise their hand, and I'll make everybody clap. Yeah, hey, Johnny got it here, you know.
Yeah, Kent. When you make it that obvious. Mm-hmm.
It's obvious.
It's actually not, though, because when you actually look at the genomes of bananas and coyotes and wolves and dogs, which is weird because dogs are just a subset of wolves, you could put something else in there, Kent. Like, you could put the golden jackal or something. I don't know. You could put the red wolf in there instead of the gray wolf. Other members of genus Canis. Anyway, when you look at the actual genome of the banana, they actually share a large portion of their genes with all other eukaryotes, like wolves and coyotes. I'm not going to say dogs in addition because, again, subset of wolves. And so that matches the prediction of evolution, right? They're now the divergence time between bananas and wolves, right? How long ago did they share a common ancestor? That's going to be like over 1 billion years. So you expect a huge amount of divergence between them. But the fact they share so many of these highly conserved genes across their genomes is itself an indication that they share that common ancestry. And you can say common design all you want, but then we have to ask the question, well, does different design imply different designers? And how much different design? How much common design implies a common designer? And there's no answer to that, right? It's just a post hoc excuse. Now, Dr. Tapioca Weasel says for $10, hey Dapper, are there donation goals? Well, can we put you in a tutu for like 6 weeks in a row, like we've probably done with Bent before? And then there's a Dapper AIG is a bag of dicks, a Mothra, Kent Bingo, and citation needed emojis. So I'll take a drink for that and I'll let you know. Okay, so the amount for me to wear a tutu is double the amount for Bent to wear a tutu. And the amount tonight for Bent to wear a tutu is $285. Yeah, and we are currently at 100, like 42 or something like that. I would have to double check, but I mean I think we're past halfway there. So, we could get Bent in a tutu, but you'd have to really work hard to get me in a tutu again. Remember, last time you guys ended up donating almost $800. So that's why I put on this tutu on my human suit, and I bought Bent a pizza. So, yeah. Ian Chen Official for $7.99 redo says, I forgot what was in AIG's bag, but then I put 2 and 2 together. We'll take a drink for that one. Thank you, Ian Chen. Okay. Here we go. Let's get more Kent in.
And yet, somehow, they don't see it. If Charlie wants to believe a dog and a banana have a common ancestor, I don't care what Charlie believes.
Yes, you do, Kent. You deeply care. You really do.
But that's not science.
It is, though. And here's the thing, right? Science can be wrong. That's okay. Science has been wrong in the past. But it is science because it's the conclusion of the consensus of scientists working in the appropriate field. Now, Savage Antipodal Bearing Shores Cobra has just gifted 5 Dapper Dinosaur memberships. They went to Percy Pendrake, Ribap Ribbers, Peyton Dooley, Trudy Stubbs, Izeheb, and I think that's 5. So there we go. We will take 5 drinks, and then we'll start reading. All right, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There we go. Also, let's see. David B22585, who's been a member for 15 months and is at the Amulet level, says, since this is a creationism video, don't we just need to be within an order of magnitude? Yeah, but you guys aren't creationists, so you don't get a free order of magnitude. And then Vandali1998 for $5 says, you should put up a pic of 4 non-avian dinosaurs and see if Kent can find the odd one out. So interestingly, one of the very early videos on this channel is actually me asking 2 of my nieces and my nephew, well, now one of my nephews, there was only one nephew at the time, to differentiate, see who was the odd man out between 4 different Maniraptoran dinosaurs, right? And one of them was just actually a bird. They didn't pick the bird. This is in the wake of my debate with Kent Hovind. So I've actually done like a practical like test of this, right? And he usually says like 5-year-olds. And I think like, I don't remember exactly, but I think they were like 4, 5, and 6 or something like that. So like there is actually some personal experiments that I've gone through for this. Dr. Tapioca Weasel for $2 says, $800. Who pays for this? I mean, you paid for a bunch of it. Not all of it, certainly. But yeah, you guys are very generous, and I really appreciate it because, as I will repeat later, the show is almost entirely supported by direct support from you guys.
That's his religion. And I still am 0 for 50. In the 50 debates I've done, I have never gotten an evolutionist to admit that evolution is religion.
Gee, I wonder why.
I'm going to take a drink for how dumb that is. That's because only creationists think that it is. Oh, man. By the way, thank you, Bent. That was the perfect response. Gee, I wonder what... Yeah, exactly.
I've come close.
Have you?
But I mean,
Eric says he's come close. Bullshit, Eric. I do not believe you. I'm taking a drink for Eric. Come on, Eric. I've seen your debates. You're no better than your father is. He's a little better in a few areas, but he's not any smarter, and he's never come any closer. So yeah. For one thing, I think Eric looks better doing the debates than Kent ever did. I'll give him that. He's got a better he's got a better jawline going.
If you say so.
I do say so. If I had Eric's jawline, I would be very happy with that jawline.
Okay.
I mean, compared to my jawline, come on.
If you say so.
What?
What about your dinosaur jawline?
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, if I were to trade out human suits, right, I would get one with a more Eric jawline. Certainly over a Kent jawline.
If you say so.
They stop. They can't say that, right? But it is. See, because once they admit it's a religion, then they're going to say, well, then we shouldn't be teaching this in school, should we?
Yes, we should, because it is in fact science, and it is not in fact a religion. There is no definition for religion that is actually accepted in places like religion studies that would accept evolution as a religion. Heather Kuhn for $2 says, that was a 3-hour stream, wasn't it? Yes, it was. That was a big part of it, as to why we made a bunch. This is not going to be a 3-hour stream because we are making sure that we get out of here in time for everyone to go see Vishanti's stream over with Jordan on Reasons to Doubt. Gupdu3 for $2 says, he's better at respecting women. Yeah, Eric does seem to be better at respecting women. He even had a female co-host for a bunch of his like Creation Today shows that wasn't his wife, if I remember correctly. And like he didn't just obviously disrespect her or anything. So Eric does seem to be less overtly sexist. I'm not going to go ahead and say that he's not sexist because I don't know. And given his background and his religious affiliation, there's a fair chance he is sexist. But he doesn't make it obvious like Kent does. So there is that. And also, Kent, no relation Halstead for $5 says, Dapper, please help. I accidentally expressed doubts about evolution, and now the globalist science cabal is outside my house. What do I do? You have to repent and say like 80 Hail Darwins. That's it. They just want a sign of penance, Do like, the little sign of the DNA, say 80 Hail Darwins. You should be okay. If you need to, you can tell them that I'm your Darwinist confessor. They'll probably accept that, right? And if you feel like you need to unburden your conscience more, you can send me like, an email or something detailing your exact sins against evolution. Yeah, feel free. And also, that was your 10th super chat on the channel. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. Vandalia 1998 for $5 says, Eric also has the positive traits of not beating his wife and having kids drown on his property. Yeah, that's true. Although that's less obvious in his actual presentations, but as a person, Eric Hovind is a much, much better person than his father. Which is one of the reasons why I give Eric unironic, like actual real props for kicking Kent out of his life and keeping him away from his grandkids. Because he's an abusive piece of crap who does not deserve his kids or his grandkids. His grandkids certainly did nothing to deserve him in their life. And I greatly appreciate that basically his entire family has cut him out, because this is like a little bit of real talk here, right? Abusive family members are a real thing, and it is very hard to escape from them. People tend to feel guilty because they're family. People tend to feel a sense of responsibility to abusive family members. And here's the thing. If a family member is actually abusing you, you do not owe that person anything, and you can cut contact with them. That is okay.
Absolutely.
Removing abusive people from your life is the right choice. And the fact that Eric had the strength to do that is something I find impressive. I really do. So good job, Eric. There's a lot of things that Eric and I would greatly disagree on, and I don't think that Eric is exactly, a great person overall, but I do respect the strength and conviction that it took to cut Kent Hovind out of his life, and it was, I think, the right move. So, unironic props to Eric Hovind there. DM answers in Gojira Wing for $5 says, "Wait, I can confess to you? I no longer have to have a seance of Charles Darwin to confess my science sins." Yeah, remember when Charles Darwin says that I give unto you the power to loose and to bind on Earth, which is, the only thing that exists because there's no heaven in evolutionism. That was a thing Darwin said in it was in Descent of Man, one of the books no one ever reads. Dr. Tapioca Weasel just gifted 5 Dapper Dinosaur memberships. Let's see who they went to if I can get my stupid chat to be not dumb. Chat, why you gotta be dumb? Alright, I think I can read it here. Mitch L., Tiny Pink Penguin, Lord Crocosquirrel, Edward, Didgeridoo. I like that. Didgeridoo, that's a fun name. Oh, I like that. Yeah, that's really good. Alright, here's 5 drinks. This actually is probably going to polish off this because there's not much in here. If it does, before the 5 drinks are up, we're actually just going to take a quick break, come back with a fresh drink. So here we go. I'm actually going to take this straw out because there's not enough in here. 1, 2. And yeah, that did it. So here's what we're going to do. We are going to go on a quick break. We will come back with fresh drinks. I will take the next 3 drinks. Then I'll do my quick post-break little talk. And we'll get right back into it. And we are probably going to end, like 55 or 50 past on the next hour. Just because we want to make sure that everyone has time to get over to the next stream that's happening. Which again, Vishanti and Jordan from Reason to Doubt talking about anti-Semitism in the atheist community. Which is not a universal problem with atheists, but it has been a thing that has been coming up pretty frequently. And so she wanted to make sure that she had a platform to talk about that on. And Jordan had noticed her calling that out on Shitter, I believe. And he reached out and was like, "Hey, why don't we talk about this?" So yeah, I do want to make sure everyone has a chance to get there. But in the meantime, here is the musical stylings of one Kent Hovind. Okay, we are back. Sorry, I was fiddling with the sound here because with the camera here, it gives me an extra sound input that I'm not used to, even though I have the sound input on this thing turned off. So like I turned on the wrong sound input and I'm just fiddling around like, what do I do? Anyway, we're back. First things first. Here's the last 3 drinks from that 5 gifted memberships. Here we go. So it was 3, 4, and 5. Okay, so quick after the break, little spiel that I give. Guys, like I said earlier, this channel is almost entirely supported directly by the viewers, whether it be through super chats, gifted memberships, Patreon, super thanks, super stickers, things like that. Even getting things from my Amazon wish list, right? A lot of it's entertainment stuff, but there is stuff for the channel. There's like a new monitor because my monitor's dying, a recording booth because I want my sound quality to go up a bit, but it's about as good as I can make it right now with my current equipment. But also, there's just stuff that's fun, like I've got a bunch of different RPGs up there because I like to just read and test out different TTRPGs. Bent also has an Amazon wishlist and a Patreon linked in the description. And like, if you're currently thinking about supporting and you want to know how would be best to support, one, Patreon gives me the most money back that you give, right? So if you give me $10 on Patreon, I get 90 cents. If you give me $10 on YouTube, I get 70 cents. So
I mean $7 and $9.
Oh, right. Sorry. Yeah, because I said $10, not $1.
Yeah.
My bad. I'm going to blame the rum. Sure. Anyway, so Patreon gives me back 90% versus YouTube 70%. On Patreon, you can also get I actually double checked. It's 15%. I've been saying 12% since forever. It's actually 15%. You get a 15% discount if you go annual on Patreon. So you can get a year's worth of Patreon membership for like just over $10 if you want to, which
it's a good deal.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty good deal. If you're on the memberships or the Patreon, you get early access to videos. I just put out a 52-minute, 53-second video today for early access. That's a video that's not going to be coming out probably until like April or something, right? I haven't actually double checked, but yeah, probably about April. So yeah, if you want to see Dapper Dino stuff as it comes out faster for the early access. So that's a fun thing to do, I think. You can also get your name in the credits if you go to $5 or above. There's a lot of cool options there. Check them out if you're interested. If, however, there's also a merch store. I have a merch store. There's cups, there's blankets, baby onesie. Someone actually bought a baby onesie out there. There's a baby out there wearing a Dapper Dinosaur onesie.
That's amazing.
Which is, really cool. But yeah, if a monthly or a annual thing is not something you want to do or you can't afford it or anything like that, that is fine. Please, all I ask is like these videos and share them. Now, my shares have been going up week after week. 3 weeks ago, I was only at 34 shares. Then you guys stepped it up and I got to 40-something shares. And this past week, I got about 80 shares. So I really do appreciate that. And when I say share, all I mean is hit the share button and then post it on whatever social media you want, right? Put it on Facebook, Instagram, Shitter, Blue Sky. I don't care. Just put it on one of them and then let the people who follow you there take a look, see what you're up to, see what you're watching. And that also goes a long way towards helping the channel. But with that, I think I've given enough of a commercial appeal, enough of a please Gibbs money appeal. And so we've got a few super chats. Fade to Gray, T-Rex is like a butterfly. Says, I once let my wife put essential oils on my feet when I had a cold. How many Hail Darwins for that? So I'm going to go ahead and say that if you believed that they would work, that's going to be like at least 10 Hail Darwins. But if you were just doing it to placate a loved one who was trying to help, that's fine. That's an okay thing for you to do. Vandalia 1998 for $5 says, watching both you and election results, and so far both pro-choices, one for women's rights and one for legal weed, are both winning by a majority in Ohio. Oh, interesting. I'm actually not surprised by either of those. Those are both very popular positions in the just general U.S. electorate. One of the things that I think a lot of people, both in the U.S. and out of the U.S., tend to forget is the degree to which a lot of the various Republican positions are actually deeply unpopular for most of the country, and the degree to which they rely on the unusual system of the United States government that allows for things like gerrymandering and the oddly disproportionate representation for relatively small population centers like Wyoming, for example. I'm not here to tell you whether or not you should accept, like the Senate being 2 per state, or whether or not the Electoral College is a good thing. You can make up your own mind on that. But I will say it is unusual among the democracies in the world. So, and actually, there's a movement among certain states to just give their electoral votes to whoever wins the popular vote, and if enough states to get 270 electoral votes actually sign on to that, then the Electoral College would still exist, but it would be meaningless. So, because then the presidency would always just go to whoever won the popular vote, even if that person didn't win in the popular vote in some of those states. So, there's actually a possibility that without changing the Constitution, the United States could effectively abolish the Electoral College. It would still actually meet as a ceremonial thing, but that's all it would be. So, there you go. Anyway, Bent, are you ready for more Kent?
Yes, I am.
All right, and we are only, let's see, $36 away from you wearing a tutu next week.
Oh, good.
Yeah, and also that would mean I would put up a new poll for us, which avatar to use. So,
It's precisely my point. Welcome to our side.
Whatever evolutionists say,
sorry, DM Answers in Gojira Wing asks, does the yearly Patreon discount mean you get less money? In one way, yes, but in another way, since you're giving me money that I wouldn't have had otherwise, no, it gives me more money because you're giving me money. Yeah, I would much rather you buy the annual Patreon than just not get the Patreon at all. So, and Fitz of Carlball's English Teacher's Rage also asked the same question, so yeah. Also, Vagary Local Interdimensional Cephalopod points out a lot of Republican positions are not very popular, even among Republicans. Yeah, when you break down a lot of positions into like individual sections that Republicans tend to oppose as a package, they actually tend to all be much more popular individually than they are as a package among Republicans. It's a weird sort of a thing there.
Okay, we're going to quit here and take a break in a second, but in Genesis chapter 1, the first chapter in the Bible, 10 times the phrase appears, after his kind. That'll be a quiz question. Genesis chapter 1.
Why would you have that be a quiz question?
That is such a stupid quiz question.
I'm taking a
So
drink.
trivial.
Yeah, who cares the exact number of times? That's like a high school English, or not, like history teacher, like, oh, hey, on exactly what date did this one battle take place? Like, it doesn't matter. And I say that as someone who has a bachelor's degree in history. When you get to getting a degree in history, no one expects you to memorize all the dates, right? They expect you to be able to look the dates up. It's just like when you actually become like a real medical doctor, no one expects you to know every single muscle off the top of your head. They expect you to be able to know how to reference books so that you know what all of them are when you need to. Javad Khusro, who's been a member for 3 months, is at the amniote level, says AIG is the inspiration for the 28th song of the album Rather Good Songs by the band Rather Good, or 13th in some versions of the album. You're going to have to help me out, although I do see an AIG is a bag of dicks emoji, so I'm going to take a drink for that. And I'm assuming that it has something to do with that whole thing. Let's see. Yeah, hi. So Bree asks, does this make Dapper Dinosaur a furry? Yes, apparently it does. This is my fursuit. Yep.
The phrase after its kind, or after his kind, or after their kind, that phrase appears 10 times in only 31 verses. I think God wanted us to get the message. After
That the law of
kind.
monophily is important? Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Message received.
Got it. Evolution's on board.
And many people get into debates with evolutionists and they get themselves in trouble because they start arguing about species.
You mean the word that was actually used to translate the same word as kind in the Vulgate, Kent? Yeah. Okay. Cool.
It's that word.
Interesting. The word that Kent lies about not being in the Bible? See what you're doing.
They're doing exactly what Darwin's contemporaries were doing, and they don't even realize it.
Oh.
They're falling into the trap of saying species never change. Yes, species do change.
Yeah, everyone agrees. Well, okay, most people agree. But the question is, can they change so much that humans can share common ancestry with bananas and wolves and elephants and pine trees? And the answer that you give is no, but then you don't give a reason for that. You're just like, I don't think that's how it works. Oh, okay, cool. And also, Dr. Tapioca Weasel has just gifted 5 more Dapper Dinosaur memberships. My goodness, thank you very much. Let's see who they go to. We got Spooky Bedhair. You guys have some great names going on here. I like it. We got Spooky Bedhair, Cato Pig himself. Himself is a separate entry from Cato Pig. And David Taylor and Vincent Sularito. Thank you very much. So let's take some 5 drinks. And here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Awesome. And hey, guys, we're really close. So, we're, yeah, we could do it. We got to get to 285, and we are at 254.
But kinds don't. Same kind. For one thing, who decides what's a new species anyway?
Taxonomists, right? It's like, who should be the judges and juries of our society, Bent?
Judges and juries.
You make a good point. DM Answers in Gojiro Wing says, you think Kent knows there's a Latin Bible? I don't know. So the thing is, like, pretty much only the Roman Catholics use the Vulgate. And they sometimes even translate from the Vulgate directly. So, like, I don't know if he knows enough about Catholicism to actually, like, have that as, like, a conscious thought in his mind that they have a Latin translation of the Bible that is very, very old. And that was done by Saint Jerome, who actually translated from Hebrew. Like, he was not using the Septuagint to translate this. He was one of the very few of the early Latin Christians who actually bothered to study Hebrew. Yeah, I don't know. I would guess that he might be vaguely aware of that fact, but I don't think he has any idea what's in it, any idea of the history of it. I doubt he knows who Saint Jerome is. So yeah, like, it's probably something like, if you asked him, like, hey, is there a Latin version of the Bible? He'd be like, oh yeah, I think so. I'm pretty sure the Catholics have that or something. And that would be it. That would be where his knowledge of the Vulgate stops. Tiktaalik for 100 Argentinian pesos says, remember when Kent wanted to debate some evolutionists and ended up claiming the theory of evolution has a p-value of 0? No, actually, I don't remember that. That sounds amazing. I don't even know how you would assign a p-value to the theory of evolution as a whole. I guess you would just have to, like, add up the statistical significance values for, like, all of the various papers that have ever published p-values in support of evolution, and then, like, multiply the inverse of that, right? Like, what the chances are of it actually being just from chance together to get, like, a p-value that is just astronomically in favor of evolution. DM Answers in Gojiro Wing says that Catholics aren't real Christians, though. Yeah, Kent seems to have from what I can remember, Kent's stance on that is that the Catholic Church is wrong about a lot of stuff, but some Catholics are true Christians despite the errors of the Catholic Church. Which, I mean, okay, whatever. I'm not going to have a fight about who's a true Christian, because apparently, according to what I see on social media, no one's a true Christian. But as far as I'm concerned, if you're Catholic and you are actually, like, a practicing Catholic, you're a Christian. If you were just baptized and you don't particularly believe any of it and you don't really go to church, then you're probably not really a Catholic. Because, there was just something that was done to you as a baby. But, and as far as I'm concerned, if you're actually a Catholic, you're a Christian.
People say, all scientists believe in evolution. I say, oh, really? Who decides who's a scientist?
The people who do science, Kent. Like, it's not that hard, right? There are scientific methods in various fields of science, right? About how you go about gathering observations, collecting data, analyzing data, and things like that. If you're doing that, if you're someone who is researching in a field, you are a scientist in that field. So if you want to be an evolutionary biologist, If you publish research about evolutionary biology, congratulations, you're an evolutionary biologist. If you want to be a geologist, all you need to do is start publishing about geology. You're a geologist. That's it. If you publish in a field, you're a scientist. And if you're currently actively attempting to gather together a paper to publish in that field, then I'm willing to say that, for the most part, yeah, you're a scientist too. That's it. That's all it takes. This is a really dumb question from Kent. I'm taking a drink for it.
It seems like something he could easily just look up a definition for,
Yeah, you would think so.
instead of just asking his small audience,
Weird that he doesn't. But then again, he never did it for dinosaur either, so...
right?
Speaking of spiders, we got one there. Okay, let's take a little break. When we come back, we'll finish up part 4.
Alright, that's it, No, I'm kidding. There's more.
Well, let's continue now with what the
Hey, it's a new time.
textbooks teach.
Oh yeah, was this like another day? Because he said we'll take a break, but like, I doubt he went and changed ties for just a break. Also, are his pants too big? Look at all those
Yeah, they are.
folds. Kent,
That's too many.
my guy, you were raking in hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. Get some pants that fit. What is happening right now?
Versus what the Bible teaches versus what Charles Darwin teaches about evolution. The Bible says several times, actually 10 times in the first chapter in the book of
We already covered it, Kent.
Genesis, that the animals and plants will bring forth after his kind. Notice the use of the word kind, after his kind. See, the problem is, this word evolution has at least 6 different meanings, or
Oh my goodness, no, Kent.
Is it
Almost
gonna
all
go
of those
with
aren't
6
evolution. Yeah,
definitions of evolution.
we'll drink when we get to it.
6 different levels or phases or steps, whatever you want to call it. The first one would be cosmic evolution. That's the Big Bang. We talked about that in an earlier session. And then there's chemical evolution, and then stellar evolution, and then organic evolution. That's the origin of matter. And then macroevolution. Now,
Origin
the
of
last
matter.
one is called microevolution. I object to the term. Okay, I don't think microevolution is a good term, but
Okay, let's drink for all of the ones that aren't actually evolution, as far as the theory of evolution is concerned. Cosmic evolution, nope. Chemical evolution, nope. Stellar and planetary evolution, nope. Organic evolution, no. Those are, in order, the Big Bang, nucleosynthesis, planetary and stellar formation, and abiogenesis, or just origin of life, which is what he has on there. So, yeah. And I think Savage Cobra has said that we have unlocked the mega stupid there, with Jillian Wren agreeing. So the 2 keys have been established to unlock the mega stupid. So you can check that off on your bingo card.
we're stuck with it, okay? Everybody uses the term microevolution, so let's just define this now. And
Okay.
show you that microevolution happens, but it should just be called a variation within the kind, exactly like the Bible says.
Weird, because the actual definition of microevolution is evolution at or below the species level. Which Kent thinks that the kind is some bigger thing than the species, which means that he actually believes in macroevolution. Because if he thinks that species can change into other species, well, that's
Which he
macroevolution.
does.
Yeah, which he does. Weird.
Just said so like an hour ago.
Mm-hmm.
Macroevolution is what does not happen. And some professors are always trying to give me a hard time saying, well, just exactly where is the line between micro and macro?
Yeah, that's a good question, because in actual evolutionary biology, there isn't actually one of those. It's an arbitrary distinction that humans made up. And so if you want to say that one can and can't happen, when there is in fact no line between them, you're going to have to figure out where that line is and how you know it's there, and how you could recognize if that line hadn't been crossed. Because if you can't tell when the line has been crossed, then you can't say it has never been crossed, right? If I told you, hey, I've never been to Colorado, right? And you're like, well, I've seen you really close to the border. Are you sure you never stepped over it? Yeah, I'm sure. I'm positive. I've never been to Colorado. It's like, well, when I saw you right next to the border, did you know where the border was? Well, no. Were you trying to avoid the border that you didn't know where it was? Well, no, but I didn't cross it. How do I know? I might not be lying, but I clearly can't actually know that I never went into Colorado because I don't know where that started.
You've been to Colorado.
I know, it's just a hypothetical thing. I have, in
I
fact,
know.
been to Colorado many times. I like Colorado overall. Not enough air, though. They need more air up there.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know exactly where the line is in all cases, but it's obvious.
Do you know where the line is in any case, Kent? Any case where there's two related organisms. Can you specifically define any kind with complete boundaries saying these are the organisms that are in the kind, and only these organisms, all other organisms are outside of this kind, even the ones that seem really similar to it? Can you do that for any kind? Because having areas where you're not sure is fine, right? Science is full of areas where there's border cases and we're like, I don't know. But if you cannot falsifiably identify even a single kind, except for humans, which you just arbitrarily define as just that one species because, you know, the Bible says humans are a special creation by God. So you don't hold that for any, like, scientific reason. So if you can find another kind that you can exactly identify and tell us why that's a kind and how you can tell it's a kind, that would be great. You would have the first thing that you would need in order to demonstrate special creation, right? That is the absolute beginning step. Anything else about special creation of organisms is completely useless, whether it be how complex things are, whether it be look at the trees, whether it be how could metamorphosis evolve. Doesn't matter. If you cannot define what these kinds are, you do not have a leg to stand on when it comes to special creation. Even if you disprove evolution, which, you know, you're not even close to doing, but even if you did, you would not get to special creation because you do not have the first thing about it. David Hercules for $5 says, Kent only understands the lines when they're on a page. With the Godzilla, thank you. Lines on pages. Yeah. So, here we go.
There is a line. See, evolution is a religious worldview when you get above microevolution. Nobody's ever observed any macroevolution. Evolution is a religion because its followers believe that it can violate the laws of thermodynamics, the first and second laws. They ascribe to evolution this mystical force that they call evolution. They give it the same power that we give to God. Evolution knows what it wants.
Nope. Sorry. Goodness.
I don't think evolution is all powerful.
Yeah, God can explicitly do things that would otherwise violate the laws of nature. Evolution doesn't do that, because here's the thing. Evolution doesn't violate any laws of thermodynamics. So the first law of thermodynamics is basically the total energy in an isolated system cannot go up or down. The total energy needs to remain the same. It can transfer from one form to another, but it stays the same. Well, guess what? Evolution doesn't start until after the universe is already here and there's a bunch of energy and all that. Evolution doesn't care where the energy came from. It doesn't care if God put it there. It doesn't care if it came out of the big singularity from the Big Bang. Doesn't matter. And second, the second law of thermodynamics says that in an isolated system, the amount of energy available to perform work can either stay the same over time or can decrease over time. It cannot increase over time. Now, technically, this isn't strictly true because the second law of thermodynamics is actually a statistical phenomenon, and unusual circumstances can actually violate it. But in any given scenario, it's extremely unlikely. So you basically don't have to worry about it in your day-to-day life. But evolution doesn't involve an isolated system having decreasing entropy. Sorry, Earth isn't an isolated system. It is a closed system for the most part, in that matter normally doesn't enter or leave Earth in any significant amounts, but it is not isolated, because isolated, there's three kinds of systems in thermodynamics, right? There's open. Open means both matter and energy can come in and out of a system. There's closed, which means matter cannot come in or out of the system, but energy can. Then there's isolated, which means that neither energy nor matter can come in or out of the system. Now, technically, Earth is an open system, right? Because things like asteroids can hit, and when they do, that's matter coming in. Rockets can go to space. Like the Apollo astronauts left some junk on the moon. Technically, that makes Earth an open system. But for the most part, matter really doesn't enter or leave Earth, so you can treat it like a closed system for most thermodynamic questions, right? Because it's not like there's constantly significant amounts of matter coming or leaving from Earth, compared to how big and massive Earth is, right? But Earth is not an isolated system, which means that the total entropy on Earth does not need to go down. It can go up or down or stay the same or do whatever. So all life does is actually increase entropy on Earth faster than it would without life. But that's okay, because we keep getting more energy in, which can do more work. Savage Antipodal. Sorry, I gotta click over here. Savage Antipodal Bearing Shores Cobra for $5 says, obviously the energy came from the great cosmic koala. Someone's been watching a whole lot of Star Trek Lower Decks, I think. Which is okay, because I like Lower Decks. I was very happy with this 4th season. I had a lot of fun with it. There was actually some character growth. We got another appearance by the greatest Star Trek actor of all time. Bent, you know who I'm talking about?
Jeffrey Combs?
Jeffrey Combs, that is correct. Jeffrey Combs is, in fact, the best Star Trek actor of all time. I don't want to hear any arguments to the contrary. I will simply dismiss them. So, yeah. Only $14 away, too.
Nice.
Or evolution directs things to happen, or evolution can overcome the laws that we see in nature. Like,
nope, not a thing. Just take a drink for it. Also, Ren says for $4.99, I'm always amazed by how much info you know off the top of your head. And there's just an at the end. If you meant to say more than that, let me know. But, well, first, thank you. I really do appreciate that. It does take work, but, I mean, I've kind of been preparing for this, like, activity for, like, my entire life. Just, like, absorbing ridiculous amounts of information about, you know, everything, anything. I actually have people who ask me before they check a Google for things. Like, hey, Dapper, do you know what this is? And the thing is, usually I'm like, no. Like, but you know all sorts of stuff. Like, yeah, but not that, so check Google. Yeah.
the first and second laws of thermodynamics. So it gives evolution, which is its God, actually, the power to create the universe.
Just
and
drink
create
again
life.
for that.
Evolution calls for faith in all sorts of things. You have to believe matter created itself.
Name one.
Yeah. Matter
That's not evolution.
formed out of the energy of the Big Bang, which is a thing that can happen because of the mass energy equivalence, you know, E equals mc squared, which, by the way, is a thing that Kent denies is commutative, right? He thinks that you can turn mass into energy, that you can't turn energy into mass, and he thinks, and this is all according to his debate with King Crocoduck, he thinks that fire, the chemical reaction that produces fire, is an example of matter turning into energy. Dr. Tapioca Weasel, I apologize, but I'm not paying for your hospital bills after hearing that statement. Sorry. So, yeah. Kent has absolutely no idea what he's talking about.
No,
You have to believe matter can come to life and then learn to.
I mean, matter does come to life, right? All of the matter in any organism right now started off in not an organism. All of it. So, yeah, matter can come to life. Life is just a sustained chemical reaction. When it stops, that thing dies. Dr. Tapioca Weasel, I think I just gave him a tick. Twitches over there.
reproduce and then change from one kind to another. All of that.
Nope. Nothing about changing from one kind to another
What
for the
was he
very
talking about?
for the very significant reason. Well, he's talking about his ideas about evolution.
Which are nonsense.
Right. There's no such thing as a change between kinds until Kent can describe in very high detail, falsifiably, what a kind is in the first place. Till then, it makes no sense to say that life can change or can't change kinds, right? It's just a made-up word, or, well, it's a made-up definition for a non-made-up word, because kind is a real valid English word, right? But his particular version of the meaning of kind is just coming straight out of his imagination. And not even really his imagination, because, you know, Kent has no originality. All he's doing is regurgitating what he's heard from other people who he learned from as, you know, a young man.
That stuff is purely taken on faith. There's no evidence for that whatsoever.
You know, except for the often literal mountains of evidence. So, I mean, you know, there's that. Kind of puts a wrench
But
in
if you
that.
ignore that,
Oh,
then there's no evidence.
right, I forgot. Yeah, if you ignore all the evidence, then yeah, there's no evidence.
Yeah.
You make a great point, Bent. Thank you.
Oh, I do what I can.
Thirdly, members who no longer believe in evolution will be excommunicated.
Okay, we're going to take a drink, and then we're going to talk about excommunication. Okay. You know what the Latin preposition ex means?
Who, me?
Yeah.
Sure. It means former.
Not quite. It means out of or away from. So, like, if you left the city, you went ex urbe, out from the city, out of the city, right? Now, communication is connected to the word communion, right? So when you're excommunicated, what that means is that the church of which you are a member is no longer willing to admit you to communion. You can no longer take the Eucharist or communion or the bread and the wine in that church. That's what it means to be excommunicated. Is anyone aware of a group of evolutionists who perform evolution communion services? Because I've never heard of it. It is literally impossible to be excommunicated from evolution. It's not a thing. Can't be done. You can't be excommunicated from anything other than a Christian church that practices communion in the first place. So, yeah. Olivia Williams for 5 beaver bucks says, I have seen single cell algae evolve into multicellular. I would count that as having seen macroevolution. Oh yeah, absolutely. And also there's a Ghidorah in there, so we'll take a drink for the Ghidorah. Yeah, that absolutely counts. Yeah. So, yep. Maya Atkinson says being excommunicated also means you'll burn in hell forever. Technically, it doesn't have to. It depends on the church that's excommunicated you. So, also, excommunication is not necessarily permanent. A lot of churches that practice excommunication have options for getting back into communion with that church, which generally involves just continuing to attend that church and reforming whatever it was that got you excommunicated in the first place. So, yeah, there is that. And even then, different churches have different soteriology when it comes to things like sacraments or ordinances and things like that. And I'm not here to get into like a deep discussion about Christian theology. So it can mean that in some cases in some churches, but that's not a universal aspect of excommunication. Dr. Tapioca Weasel for $5 says, Dapper Dinosaur, are we getting any better as an audience at the whole sharing the video thing, or is chat a sad disappointment? No, you are getting better. I said earlier, you might have missed it, that when I first started keeping track of shares, I only got a tiny number of shares, like 30-something. And then the next week, I got 40-something. And this past week, I got about 80. So yeah, you guys are definitely getting better. And I do appreciate that because, I mean, it really does help. And hey, we have passed the Bent wears a tutu number. So Bent, you are wearing this next time, although I'll have to shrink it down to make it your size. So yeah.
Yeah.
And Aster Ryu says for $4.99, AIG is a box of merch from bad groups of Kent's favorite animal, at least according to Kent. You know what? We'll take a drink. Okay. April Van Ryan says, I drink a lot of wine while reading Origin of Species. Does that count as communion? I don't know. Have you been ordained as a Darwinist priest? Because only Darwinist priests can say the words of substantiation over the wine that you read the Origin of Species with. So, which I also don't even know what the words of instantiation would be for Darwinism. I don't know. Natural selection blood. No, that doesn't make any sense.
I mean, if you stop believing this theory, you will lose your job. And there are many professors and teachers in school who have...
I mean, you won't, though, right? Because first of all, most professors that are going to bother with this are going to have tenure, which means that they can't be fired for their viewpoints on science or on their field of study. Now, you can fire teachers with tenure. You just can't do it for the content of their research. Asteroid for $1.99 says, also, wait, why is the counter already at 61? Because that's how many drink triggers we've had. I mean, I haven't overcounted, have I?
I don't think so.
There you go. That's just how many it is. I just lost my train of thought. Oh, right. Also, most jobs in academia don't actually involve evolution. Now, on the other hand, if you are actively promoting demonstrably false science and you're trying to get to tenure, good luck. And here's the thing, Kent. If you don't want that to be the case, there's this thing you can do, which is called publishing your results in the peer-reviewed literature in such a way that you can shift the consensus to at least get to the point where you say anti-evolution is no longer treated like flat Earth, which is how it's treated now, as it should be currently, because you've got a big old fat goose egg when it comes to how much evidence for your ideas you have. And you've got a similar amount of evidence against evolution, which, by the way, aren't the same thing. Disproving evolution doesn't prove young Earth creationism. Sorry.
Have become critical of evolution theory and have lost their job.
Yeah, Ben Stein did a whole big thing called Expelled, No Intelligence Allowed about this, and when you dug into every single one of them, it turns out that for everyone, it turns out that it was either absolutely not the reason that they were fired, or there's no evidence that it was the reason, but we can't say for sure. Weird, right?
Yeah.
It's almost like there isn't some big conspiracy to keep creationists out of big universities. Because there isn't.
It just is, it's discrimination. It happens all across the country, though. Fourthly, only members in good standing, then, are considered worthy of judgment, and therefore, if you don't believe in evolution, you're not worthy of judgment. So,
what does that mean, considered?
I don't even. Okay.
I have no idea how to be a member in good standing with evolutionism, and I don't even know what judgment we're talking about. That hurt my brain a little bit. We're taking a drink for that. I don't even know what he's trying to say.
Number 1 and 2.
I think we already went over them.
Put those on the screen.
Maybe he didn't.
I don't remember seeing a 1 and a 2 on the screen.
I don't know.
all those worthy of judgment believe in evolution.
It
sounds like Soviet style to me.
What does that mean, Kent? What judgment is this? Who's doing the judging? What happens if you're judged bad or good or what? What? I have no idea what's happening right now.
No,
At least most of the time I know what point he's trying to make. With this one, I'm just like, beats me, man. I got nothing. Fake degrade T-Rex is like a butterfly, says the commune wine of Darwinism is irradiated to promote mutations. Oh, man.
A teacher gets up in the Soviet Union 10 years ago and says, kids, I don't believe in communism anymore. Well, he's going to lose his job.
No, he's probably going to go to a gulag. Are you going to a gulag, Kent, for believing in creationism? No. And here's the other thing. Communism isn't the kind of thing that can have, like, empirical support in the same way as evolution, right? Because it's a preference for how to arrange a government and an economy, right? And you can say, well, I think I like this better because it does X, Y, and Z, and I like those things. Where someone else can come and say, well, I like capitalism because starving to death sucks. But that's a subjective value, right? You don't have to like eating. You can just like starving to death. Go for it. You know. Sure. Hey, look, China managed to survive, 40 plus million deaths from starvation under communism to come out and still be the most populous country on earth. So maybe it's not so bad. Yeah, I don't know. That's a personal preference that you can have. You can't write a paper to say communism is false, right? Because it's a method for organizing things like labor and like how you get material goods around and how you govern a society. It's a method, right? It's like saying you could say that a certain progression of chords is false. It doesn't make any sense, Kent, right? You can't have a false progression of chords. You can have a progression of chords that don't sound good to you, but that doesn't make them false. This isn't something you can assign a true or false value. Now, there are claims within communism that you can assign true or false values to, right? Like some communists have said, well, when we collectivize farms, we'll have a more efficient distribution of food. Turns out that was false, right? You can say, oh, when the profit motive is at the center of everyone's decision-making, then everyone will seek to serve the needs of other people to the maximum extent possible, because that will make them the most money. Turns out that in most cases, or at least in many cases, that's also false when it comes to, say, capitalism. So you can assign truth and false values to claims made by capitalists and communists. But you can't say capitalism is false either. It doesn't make any sense. Savage Antipodal Bearing Shores Cobra for $5 says, Person that advocates for discrimination against non-young Earth creationists, women, unmarried couples, LGBT people, etc. Same person claims discrimination is bad. We'll see, it's bad when it's against him. See, those non-young Earth creationists, those women, those LGBT people, those aren't people who are as good as Kent. They don't deserve as much. But Kent, he deserves a lot. You can tell based on how he treats his residents over there at the cult compound. Or his wives, for that matter.
Or his life. And then they can survey all the teachers and say, how many believe in communism? And of course, they all raise their hand. And they'll say, see, kids, all the teachers believe in communism. Therefore, it must be true.
See, the thing is that the reason that they do that is different, right? The reason that most of the scientists, and by most I mean so many that all would be appropriate in virtually any circumstance, right? They believe that because of the published literature. There isn't actually anyone ready to haul you off to Siberia where you can live on an island where your only chance of survival is eating the other inmates, which, yes, is a real thing that happened in Soviet Russia. That's not going to happen to you. The absolute worst case scenario is you have to get a different job. And that is also usually not happening. That's it, right? No one's going to stick you in Alaska with the polar bears where you have to eat your comrades. Not happening. So this is a disanalogy.
That's a Russian-style ballot, what we've got here in America, when it comes to evolution.
Just take a drink.
Because if a teacher stands up against the evolution theory, they are likely to lose their job or certainly their government grants.
Government grants are usually not something that can just be revoked, right? You might fail to get subsequent grants, but once you have the grant for the research, that's it. You have the money. You can use the money for the research. Now, when it comes to reapplying for new grants, well then, they can look at your previous research and see how productive it was. And if it didn't seem like it was productive, you might not get another grant. But yeah, grants aren't this just ongoing thing where like, oh, I just have an indefinite grant of $100,000 to study evolutionism. That's not how grants work. Goodness, oh, this is starting to get to me.
Their financing will dry up. Ask Robert Gentry what happened to him at Oak Ridge Laboratories when he started publishing information against the evolution theory.
First of all, he didn't actually publish anything that directly contradicted the theory of evolution in terms of, like, the actual biology. Also, DM Answers in Gojira Wing for $2 says, a Christian with a persecution fetish? What? Yeah, I know, right? That's a thing that never happens, right? Oh, hey, drink for Godzilla. Make sure we add one to the drink counter for that Godzilla. So here's the thing with Robert Gentry, right? Gentry said that polonium halos proved that Earth was created relatively quickly, and that essentially all the granites in the world were created instantaneously with polonium. But here's the problem. Not all granites are the same. The granites that he identified as having his anomalous polonium halos were actually only granites in which the actual matrix had been replaced with other chemicals that were moving in and out, which meant that the system was not closed. Now, one of the things about that is that the only polonium halos he identified were polonium halos that can be the result of the decay chain of uranium-235. Another very common isotope within the decay chain of uranium-235 is an argon isotope. Now, I don't actually remember which isotope of argon it is, so you'll have to forgive me. But the thing about argon is it's a noble gas, which means what kinds of chemical bonds does it like to make? Right. No chemical bonds. That's kind of the whole point of being a noble gas, right? You don't make chemical bonds. So does it make chemical bonds within the crystal matrix of the granite? No. That means it's free to migrate, which is what actually happens when the uranium-235 decays into argon. That argon tends to migrate along the path of least resistance, which means that every time that uranium-235 tends to hit argon, it tends to migrate. Now, the half-life of this argon is about 3.5 days, which is not that much, but it's enough to get farther away from the original source of uranium-235 than the actual halos from alpha decay of the other nuclides in the uranium-235 decay chain are. Which means that it can set up, after it decays into polonium, two different isotopes in the decay chain, enough distance to actually create the decay halos for uranium, or sorry, for this polonium. Now, what a halo is in this case is it's actually a circle, or actually it's a sphere, but when you cross-section the granite, right, you get a circle because that's what the cross-section of a sphere looks like. It creates a sphere which is equal in diameter, or sorry, in radius, to the mean free path of an alpha particle of the energy characteristic of alpha particles emitted by that particular isotope. And every isotope that decays via alpha decay, which is the release of a helium nucleus, right? Each one has a characteristic energy based on things like quantum physics that we know of, so that when that alpha particle is released, it has exactly that much energy every time. So, what this means is that you have the same free mean path for every alpha decay event involving the same nuclide, which means that you get these things initially as trails, but they end up forming this sphere. So what Gentry discovered was the migration of argon in granites that were already known to have high degrees of migration of the constituent minerals. And then he said that proved a young Earth. I don't know how it does that.
Magic.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, it's not that easy to find all this out, right? Like, I had to really dig for this because most scientists just do not give a crap about polonium halos because it's known to just be a non-issue. But also, when you look into the Gentry story, there's no actual evidence that he was fired for this research. Because ultimately, his research just brought up a question, and then people looked into it, and they figured out what the answer was, right? Why do you get these relatively isolated polonium halos? Turns out we have great answers to that. Cool. Dr. Tapioca Weasel for $2 says radon, I think. What did I say? Argon? It might be right. Yeah, you're right. It's radon. I said argon. I'm sorry. It is radon. You know what? That's why we have Dr. Tapioca Weasel here. Yeah, it's another noble gas, but it is radon. Which you would think I would know, because it's like in the name. Radon is the radioactive one. So, you know. Also, Rodan in the Godzilla franchise, in Japanese is Radon, but they decided to swap the vowels out, so it didn't just sound like people were saying radon, which is just the name of a chemical element. Fun Godzilla fact. Or I guess Rodan fact. Yeah. So, no, Dr. Tapioca Weasel, you are right. Now that you said radon, I realize that, yeah, you're right. It is radon. The radioactive one. Sorry about that. Because, yeah, I'm pulling this, like, I'm trying to remember the decay chain of uranium-235 from memory. Which you might be surprised to know, but I have not committed the entire decay chain of U-235 to memory. I know, so shocking, right?
Yeah, it is a little bit.
Evolution tries to answer the basic questions to life, like who are we, why are we here, where did we come from, where are we going when we die?
No, it doesn't.
I don't
Evolution,
think it does
yeah,
at all.
evolution, science in general can't answer the whys except in like causality, right? It can't tell you what you should or shouldn't do, and it has absolutely nothing to do with any potential afterlife, except saying this field of science does not provide evidence for an afterlife, but it also doesn't provide evidence against one. If you want to believe in an afterlife, great, have fun with it. Evolution has nothing to say about it.
It does the same thing any other religion does. It answers the 4 basic questions to life. And
those aren't even things that various religions all do. Right? Like, there are religions that famously are agnostic on the existence of an afterlife. You're going to say that Judaism doesn't count as a religion because there's ambiguity on the existence of an afterlife? Some Jewish people believe in an afterlife in which the soul of the person merges back with God. Some believe in reincarnation. Some believe that that's just it. You're just dead. Does that not count as a religion, Kent? Or is it just that when you think of religion, what you do is you think of your own religion, and then you just export those ideas onto all the other religions? In fact, there are some religions that we don't even know what they teach because they're esoteric religions. Good luck figuring out what the Druze think. Not even most of the Druze know. Because it's a religion that has different levels of access to teachings based on your level within the religion. It's also an ethno-religion, so you can't even join. So you can't rise up the ranks of Druze because you weren't born into the community. Sorry.
evolution is often deified. If you look in literature dealing with the subject, you'll see the word evolution is capitalized.
Yeah, because it's in reference to the theory of evolution, Kent, right? You're distinguishing between the theory of evolution, which is a particular thing, and it's a proper noun, the kind of thing that in English gets capitalized. I'm taking a drink because this is too much for me. As opposed to just the general noun evolution that just means change over time, right? So when you're talking about the evolution of dance, small e, because it's not the theory of evolution. When you're talking about evolution as shorthand for the theory of evolution, you put in the capital E so people know what the heck you're talking about.
As if it is God of some kind, and it's certainly...
Yeah, the only words that get capitalized are God. That's why the word today on his background there is actually him referring to God. Same thing with flood. Taking a drink for that.
not. Evolutionists like to focus the discussion on microevolution because that's all there are is examples from microevolution.
Except no, we have examples of macroevolution all over the place. Every time speciation has ever been observed, that's macroevolution. And we have seen the evolution of things like brand new kinds of algae, brand new multicellular organisms from unicellular organisms. If that's not a change in kind, I don't know what could ever be a kind, going from single cellular to multicellular.
There are thousands of examples of that. You know, dogs produce a variety of dogs, and they'll...
Yeah, Savage Antipodal Bearing Shores says, does that mean that Navy ships are deities? Yes, all of them. That's the actual pantheon of the American religion, is the names of Navy ships.
You know, my name is capitalized, too.
Oh, man, I forgot you're God. Hi, God.
I must be.
Hey, what the hell, man?
Oh, don't worry.
Could you do something about any of this?
No, I can't, because I'm not actually God.
But your name is capitalized.
Yeah, it turns out other things are capitalized besides God.
Damn. So disappointed in you, God. I mean, Bent. Okay, Kent no relation Halstead, there we go. For $2 says, I hope Mr. Hoven gets English coaching in prison. I mean, it's available in most prisons in the United States. You know, there's like continuing education courses and whatnot that inmates can take to hopefully get, you know, like a decent job when they get out so that they don't just fall right back into crime. Of course, the recidivism rate in the United States is absolutely through the roof. So, I don't know how good they are.
So you see, evolution happens. No, microevolution happens.
Which is evolution, and you don't know where to draw the line, Kent, so... Yeah, sorry.
Variations happen, but that doesn't extend any farther than that. And they keep focusing on examples from microevolution because they want to draw the attention away from the fact that there is no evidence for any of the rest of them.
No, what actually happens, Kent, is that you just pretend that actual examples of macroevolution are microevolution because you think that helps your cause rather than just showing what a dishonest piece of crap you are. That's what's actually happening there.
I like how Kent doesn't believe in any of his 6 types of evolution, which most aren't evolution, but they're still, like, true things that happen.
Well, he does believe in the microevolution, at least. So I guess he believes in one of the 6.
One of the 6.
Yeah. Tiktaalik for 100 Argentinian peso says, why is no one pointing out Kent has evolution capitalized in his own diagram? That's a good point. I didn't even think about that. Thank you. Yeah, that's true. He does. Sean for $5 says, a lawyer just debated Kent and showed that cancer is a multicell evolving into a single cell, and all Kent could do was stammer with an attempt at a Mothra. So we'll take a drink for the Mothra, because you are a member, so you can send the Mothra. I haven't seen that. Let me know what channel that was on. I'd be interested to take a look, unless it's on one of those channels that I just tend not to watch for various reasons. But here's the thing. We're going to start wrapping up here because I want to make sure everyone has time to go and check out Vishanti's stream with Jordan. That is linked in the description as well as in the pinned chat up there. Right? Check it out. Anti-Semitism in the atheist community. I think it's an important topic because unfortunately there is a surprising amount of anti-Semitism coming out of the atheist community. Most recently, Holy Kool-Aid posted something that was virulently anti-Semitic and just tripled and quadrupled down on it after doing so, after being called out numerous times by both Jewish people and Gentiles as like, hey man, that's like blatantly anti-Semitic. And yeah, things like that aren't okay, and we should call them out. So yeah. Anyway, let's take a look at what's coming up. Ben, do you have anything you want to tell people about before I give the upcoming schedule?
Well, just the same usual things. I have a Patreon. I have Amazon wish list. And I make music.
Okay.
And you can download it for free.
David B22585 says, Holy Kool-Aid did? What the 4-letter words did I miss? Here's my recommendation. Check out that stream, because I would be shocked if that particular example doesn't come up. All right, so let's see. Tomorrow, the 9th, at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, I'm going to be premiering the David Menton Supercut movie. It's like almost 3 hours long. If you show up for that, bring a snack, bring some beverage, and yes, Fearmonger, holy Kool-Aid. I'm not kidding. I saw it happen in real time. Yep. On Saturday, the plan is to do another Gish with Vish with Vishanti, so who you should be going to watch right after this, because we're about to end. And then on the next Tuesday, we were doing another Kent with Bent, and while we did not get enough for either Bent to get a free pizza or for me to wear the tutu, we did get enough for Bent to wear the tutu and for me to ask you what my next avatar should be. So, with that, guys, thank you so much. Please do check out the links in the description. There's Patreons, there's wish lists. Join the channel if you haven't and you want to. Oh, excuse me, I have the hiccups now. And again, please check out the linked stream, because if you're worried about the Holy Kool-Aid situation, I can almost guarantee you that it will be explained there. And even if it isn't, or it doesn't look like it's going to be, guess what? You can ask about it in chat, because it's going to be a live stream. So, with that being said, thank you very much, everyone. I hope you all have a wonderful, safe rest of your week, and I hope to see all of you on Thursday, and more importantly, all of you in just a few minutes over on Reason to Doubt. All right, with that, we are going to get out of here. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Hey, before you leave, I just want to take a second to thank my patrons and channel members, especially those pledging $20 or above. Benthoven, Phil Rivara, Tapioca Weasel, Whispers, Denny5252, Ellerhan Teller, Ian Chen, Kelvin Brostic Van Manen, Landon Knoll, Mabbity Babbity, Monkey They Them, Sphincter of Doom, Ita V, Strawberry Vein, and Star Runner. It's because of my channel members and patrons whom you're seeing on screen that this channel can stay afloat. Without you, it would all shut down. If you want to join the team, there's a link to join the channel below this video, and there's a link to join the Patreon in the description. On the Patreon, you can get a 10% discount for pledging annually, and either way, you get early access to virtually all of my scripted videos, often 3 to 5 months before they come out for the general public. Thanks for watching.